So yeah, thanks for the introduction. I actually have one chart that tells the truth later on. But yeah, let's go. It's Friday afternoon. I expect everybody to be tired by now. So I hope you still have coffee or whatever you want. Because I want to tell a bit of a story now that happened to me. And yeah, I'm a software engineer. I was working in a team. And in this team, we had multiple services. One of them was, I would call it, bad shape. It was no fun to work in. Refactorings didn't help. Not that good of a situation. I was frustrated and I didn't know how to improve from there. So I asked my boss, hey, we need to redo that. We need time for that. It would be a bigger project, maybe half a year. Can we please improve? And the answer that I got was, sounds totally reasonable to me, but this has no business priority, no. And this is the end of my story. Yeah, what I want to do in this talk is, whenever you see this slide, it will be about exactly this story. And what we're doing is we repeat it 2 more times. You heard it once by now, and the next round I will do is explain what happened in the background of the story. And the third round I will do is, what else could have happened? Alternative future, and maybe a better one. That's my plan for now. But before I go, one question. Did this story sound familiar to you? Please raise your hands if. Okay, cool, so close to everybody. Follow-up question. Do you know other people, not yourself, who also had similar problems? Are you aware of that? Another one? I would say close to all once again. So yeah, it's a common problem I'm talking about. So let's go. What happened? I will go chronologically through the story, so whenever you see, in case you got lost what I'm talking about, this is when you can get back. First, I don't want to talk about the history of how I came into a team with a service in a bad shape, because this is a pure technical one. But this talk is not so much about the technical part. There's no code, nowhere. It's more about, okay, I came to the realization, no chance with refactorings. Let's not judge about this decision. Let's take it for granted. My next step, okay, I want to rewrite. What's implicit in this message? Implicit is, I cannot just do it. So I want something different than I will. What's implicit in, I cannot just do it? I don't have power to decide to just do it and to just spend my time there. So let's go. Here's the first word, and I love formal definitions at the beginning of talks. So what's power? 2 people were talking about power and power structures, but actually you missed the definition of what's power. So we go by a dictionary definition. Power is the possession of control, authority, or influence over others. That's cool. That's true, probably, but it's not helpful at all. So actually, it's a long definition, not just one line, but it's way too long to quote it here. So how does it continue? Power has 2 dimensions. Power can be formal and can be informal. And formal power is everything you see as written agreements or law. Example, the Candler is defined by law. Okay, if you have that position, you have this and that right, you can judge, you can create new law. Fine. Written agreement could be, you're the CTO now, you have this and that right, this and that obligation, that's your job now. This is like formal power given to you by a contract. In case somebody questions you, you can point to the contract. Here, that's why. But this is not the most interesting part about power. The other one that is actually more interesting to me, that's informal power. Easy definition, everything else. The dictionary said it's respect and appreciation that gives you power. Why? It means people that you respect, like your friends or your family, they don't have any formal power. Even your mom, there is no contract that your mom is allowed to decide anything. But for most people, the mom is important. That's informal power. And yeah, there was this talk this morning, and Andrew quoted something that I really love about the tyranny of structurelessness. Structurelessness and the definition of what is formal structure and informal structure, that's quite related to what's formal and informal power. So I hope you listen to the keynote, because it was a similar thing. But yeah, let's continue with my definition. It wasn't that helpful, so I continued with articles. Jacob Kaplan-Moss is one of the co-founders of Django, and he wrote articles about IT leadership, and he has a different definition of power. In his definition, it's role power, formal power, more or less, that matches. It's relationship power, that still sounds a lot like informal power, but he also defines something expertise power, and this one catched me. Why? First, my title is principal engineer, and this is more or less an expertise role power. So this is a title where people expect me to have expertise out of this title, but at the same time, I'm not officially allowed to do something just by the title. The only thing the title gives me is that people expect that I have knowledge and that I somehow act with it. But yeah, why do I believe this is interesting, that there are 3 types of power and not only 2? Because it's kind of IT specific, that we want to have the third kind being available. A lot of us don't want a role power, I'm the boss, but they still want to have a role that somehow gives them power. And that's where expertise power comes in. Back to the story. What did I do? I said I asked my boss, as I decided I don't have power. So what did I do? I asked somebody with role power, because a boss for a team can decide more stuff. And my implicit assumption was, he shall use his power. Now the first remark, I said he, because I tried to have inclusive language, but it's an actual example and it was a guy. So that's why he. Second one, what do I mean with he in this case? It's a person. And it's a role. And how do those 2 parts interact? I don't want to go into the details, because people here at this conference know about DDD and about social technical systems, so not all the details. Instead, a quote from yesterday. Yesterday evening, Kenny talked about patriarchy, and one of the things he talked about was something that I liked a lot, and that is a quote that a person is more than a role. There was a second quote that I don't have on the slide, that a role is more than a person. Both are important. Why? Because, come on, move, thanks, here we go. Because in this picture, there's person, there's structure, yeah, but a lot of times I read that and I implicitly only see one view on the person, and that's a role, but that's not true if you talk about the social part. So person, role, both are important. And now back to the story, what did I do? I talked to the role, actually. Yeah, obviously to a human person, but to his role. When asking, hey, this and that refactoring, I didn't really talk to the person. I didn't really care about the person, except from being, it's my boss. What was the next part of the story? The answer was, sounds reasonable, so probably my arguments weren't too bad. And no business priority. Yeah, okay, that's a role answer to my problem. It's his role to judge about business priority. I didn't get any answer on a personal level. Makes sense. So far, that's what happened. And yeah, what I would like to do from here is go into the story even deeper and tell you about all the things I learned since that happened, because the story is a few years old. And I learned a lot about what I could have done differently, but maybe it's the right time for you also to think about it for a few seconds, because I will go through my steps and what I learned, but if you find anything that I didn't mention, I would be super happy for the discussion later on. So I'll get a sip of water now. So, once again, the story. Last time, I promise. First part was, okay, I'm in a team and the situation isn't cool. And I come to the conclusion I need to change something. And the next thing is I already talked to a person. What did not happen in between? I did not think about what to do next. I just did something. And that's the first one. And here it's actually getting interesting because now it's getting culture specific. So I'm from Germany, and usually German, European culture, yeah, not so many differences, fine. But this one, I believe, actually has something culture specific, and that is actually power. And the term of power in Germany are a complex relationship. If you think about historic definitions, all fine. But think about Third Reich. Afterwards, German people have a problem with thinking about power. There are two extremes left. Either is okay, power is bad. Nobody should have power. That sounds like anarchy, but doesn't really work. And most people know that it doesn't work, somehow. The other alternative that happens is, we just need a strong leader, then everything would be fine again. Once again, most people know that this is not the reality, somehow implicitly. But what also happened is, there's a lot of gray area in between that nobody dares to touch anymore. That's a quite German situation now. And yeah, probably you're not working with so many Germans, but I give it to you as an example because it's super interesting that there is culture-specific behavior around power. If you look at, for example, how Asian cultures look at power, it is different than the European view on power. So yes, there is something in it. Yeah, I would like to go into like one or two quotes about power because I find them interesting on the German perception and maybe they give you something as well. First one would be a classic German understanding by Max Weber on how power is, and that's enforcing one's own interests and ideas, if necessary, against the will of others. So this is like the classic perception of power. I push my own thoughts and wishes. That's fine. If you go for that one, that doesn't sound like a good thing you want to think about. It just doesn't. But there's also actual recent German literature and recent scientists that go in a different direction. And it's the first time ever I have to quote a German book because there is no English translation, unfortunately, yet. But it's still, in case somebody's curious. It's a German scientist, Byung-Chul Han, about what is power, was ist Macht. And this is one of the first times that people actually don't think power is something top-down anymore, because what he states is top-down is not the full truth. If you do power top-down in a big system like a company, not a company like a country, actually your consultants have power too, because you cannot do it all alone. So even top-down power is not really top-down only because, for example, if they decide not to follow you anymore, they have the power to reduce your power. It's quite a, let's say, complex view how power could work. Plus, it's actually a view that power doesn't have to be against each other's will. It's more, the best kind of power is the one where people freely follow you. That's also power, but it doesn't have to be against your will. Obviously, and at the same time, unfortunately, there's no recipe how to do that. Let's continue after the short look on power perception. So I didn't think about what I'm doing. Fine. I just ran to my boss, also fine. As I did this talk for the first time, I got a very simple and at the same time very true answer what I could have done better in my situation in the, back then. And that was, you just needed better arguments. Maybe your arguments were not convincing. Like your technical arguments were not good. That's like, could be true actually, could have helped. But I give you the reason why it probably wouldn't have helped in a minute. And that is, if I want to convince the boss, I somehow need to talk to the person. And the example why I would have needed to care about the person is from exactly the story I provided. That boss at that time had a sick child at home. I didn't know, but I learned later. And a sick wife at home. So his perception of the whole situation was actually, I don't really care if you want to improve the service. I just don't want to have another problem to solve right now. This was his view on the world. And it's fair. But I didn't know, so I came with another problem. Yeah, okay, but now, what could I have done if I wanted to talk to the person? Once again, this quote, person, not role. I bring a book that could help you. It's Drive by Daniel Pink that describes quite well how people are motivated intrinsically. There are different books, and this one is not such a scientific one. It's more like English-American, easy-to-read literature. It is about what do people want. Not so much carrot and stick approach, but people want autonomy, want mastery, want purpose. Quick explanation, autonomy, like every one of us wants to control what we're doing. Nobody of us wants to be forced. We want to control what we're doing, when we are doing it, and with whom we are doing it, actually. If somebody can provide you that, or more than you had it, that's probably going to motivate you to do something. Second one, mastery. I believe it's especially valid for IT people. We all want to get better at what we are doing. Not necessarily be the master in the end, but we want to get better and we want to improve all the time. If somebody can provide you that, probably you're interested. And the last one, purpose. It's working towards something larger. I immediately think of church or something that big, but it doesn't have to be. It could also be, I want to improve the ecological situation. That's still huge, okay? Or I want to have a better life for my family. Now it's getting smaller. So there's a lot of options what could be the larger thing you're actually working for. But all of them, I don't know, think about yourself. Church wouldn't motivate me at all. Ecological situation would motivate me a lot. My family can help itself, so not that much. But yeah, all of them could catch you, one more than the other. And thinking about the boss in that situation, he felt like he's losing autonomy because he's pushed to do stuff. So he wasn't motivated to help me. But yeah, please don't take it as an answer what I said about my boss in this one situation, that there it was nice that I should have provided a solution. Because there are all other situations where people say, please don't come with a solution, I want the autonomy to decide how to. So that's exactly the perfect example of, if you say I want to go for the person and understand the person, you really have to look carefully at which person and not be generic. Another one that I didn't think about is, why did I expect my team lead to react at all in his role? The answer in the implicit one is, yeah, because it's his job and his motivator should be money. If nothing else, then money. And actually that's true, that's fine. It's like the most basic motivator you can have, because if you don't have money, you're also losing autonomy. But it only works for this example. So in a different situation, it probably doesn't help you to say, hey, you have to help me because of your role. Let me give you a few examples of different situations where you need other motivators. What about open source? People are not forced to work with you. What about now, not IT, NGOs? People are not forced to work in NGOs. And yeah, why did I bring exactly this picture now for the alternative next to capitalistic answers? Because actually I learned all the stuff back then as I started coding, and it was a browser game about horses. And there I had people with me that didn't get paid. They all did it freely. How the hell do I motivate people that don't get paid to work for me who gets paid? Yeah. So there you really need really strong drivers to somehow keep them motivated. Next one. And something that's obvious in hindsight, but I completely forgot it. Back in the days, we were in a team. In the company, there were more than 2 people. It was not only me and my boss. In my story, I immediately jumped to I talked to my boss. That's not the only answer. There are other people. For example, teammates, other teams, like colleagues of my boss, maybe CTOs, whatever. Why didn't I do this? Next term that I avoided, politics. Talking to other people to get what you want, that's politics. And politics is bad and awful. Nobody wants to do politics. At least my perception, and you can tell me if you agree, is IT people want to have something deterministic and not complex human behavior in politics. I didn't want to. Yeah. About the term of politics, something important, and that is politics is actually not the right term. The right term is micropolitics, because that's the organizational version of politics. The term is invented like 1975. It's a German invention. Yay, Berlin invention actually. It's out of organizational theory. It is politics within organizations. It's micropolitics, makes sense. And there's a lot of science and books on it actually, how to do it by now. Yeah, Max left, but I wanted to show you one diagram that's the truth about micropolitics, and it's my favorite Twitter quote ever. This is a real, no, it's not a real diagram, but this is an organigram of a company. Have a look because it's so much fun. So it's not mine, there's a source. I didn't invent that. I'm still not sure if it's the right source because multiple people claim they invented it, but it's at least one. Yeah, and you get it. You probably, all of you read a few of them. Like the black one, that's a real organigram, how a company works, officially. And all the other colors are this example of what else is going on. I don't need to read it to you probably. You all get it, what's going on here from doing sports together. That's quite easy to, somewhere there's sexual relationships in it. Affairs, exes, threesomes. Okay, there's a lot going on. So probably this is not a real company of this size. True. But if you think about the job you're doing, let's be honest. Every one of us has something like this somewhere going on. Like I know some of our C-level are not doing golf together, but they play squash regularly. That's a perfect example. That's not an official relationship. And yeah, I see some of you nodding, so there's another level that I also want to make explicit. If you're not involved in such a relationship, but you know that it exists, there's communication going on. That's also politics. Who's telling you that this relation exists? And why? So, yeah. There's information flow, there's stuff going on. So I wanted to avoid politics, but it's hard to avoid it. Because, yeah, people have relations and communication is going on everywhere. So what I did is reading books later on, and I want to bring you some in case you're also interested in having a view on politics. The most sarcastic one first, the Dictator's Handbook. Dictator's Handbook is every type of politics could be addressed from the point of view of leaders trying to survive. This is not about companies. This is not about organizations. This is about real politics. And it's a political scientist together with a sociologist writing this. So this is no sarcasm, this is reality. There is discussion going on if it's like Machiavellistic style to think like they do in the book, because what they do is They don't take a moral take if it's good or bad how people behave. They completely keep morals out of their perception. They try to take it as what they claim realistically as possible. How do you get power if you want to have power? And how do you keep power once you got it? And yeah, this is drastic, but at the same time it's cool because you come to obvious but weird feeling results. What of that? It's easier to keep power that you got if it only relies on very few people. Makes sense now that I'm hearing it, but if you look at it, it also means, yeah, democratics is hard because you always rely on a lot of people. Tyranny would be easier. And kind of the same is true in a company. That doesn't do a difference. One note, because I saw people taking pictures of the book. The book is hard to read, even though I love it, but there's a YouTube version of it, like 20 minutes, comic style. Go for YouTube, in case you're interested. Yeah, this is a tough view. I personally like this view of keeping morals out of the game when you try to understand politics, but not everybody likes to, and I'm fine with that. So I bring you another example how you could also have a look at it. That's once again more American literature style. Not so hard to read, not that scientific, but very useful. It's Give and Take by Adam Grant. It's like 10 to 15 years old by now. And it's about interactions between humans. All kind of interactions. What he's doing in this book is he's describing four types of people and how they behave in correlation to each other. Like first type is you can be a giver. Giver means you want to give out knowledge. You want to give out information. You give your time to everyone, and it makes you happy. No judgment if this is good or bad. There are people who are like that. They get happy out of it. Opposite, taker. You want to get all the information you can get. Cool, grab it, give it to me. All the time, all the knowledge, I want to have it all. Also, no judgment. It's not good or bad, it exists. And you already see that the relation between the two of them can be quite imbalanced. Third one, also interesting, matcher. Those are people, and I would describe myself as one. I give out, and I love giving, but at some point I also feel like, yeah, but I should also get something back. So I stop giving it till I get something. So it somehow needs to stay in balance. That's another type, how to handle relations. And the last one is the worst, because that's the only one where there's a judgment in the book, and that's so-called fakers. The title tells you, because fakers mean I pretend to be a giver, I give it all, and yeah, I don't want something back, at least that's what I pretend, but actually I do. So I plan it all for the win in the midterm. Yeah, so why this book and why the empty quote box? Because I still have a quote. And that's how people interact here. When takers win, there's usually someone else who loses. Research shows that people tend to envy successful takers. Sounds obvious, so they are not the most loved people, but successful. Givers succeed in a way that creates a ripple effect, enhancing the success of people around them. That also makes sense. There's studies in the book, in companies, which people are the most successful. And the assumption, I don't know if you agree, is that givers are not that successful. Because they give, but they don't get. And the other assumption is takers are probably on top. Statistically, it's not true. What happens is there are givers at the bottom. There are takers and matchers in the middle. So far, assumption verified. But statistically, it's mostly givers at the top who are long-term givers. At some point, other people like they felt they should give back, even though the givers didn't wait for that. So there is no real take on what's best. Givers are top and bottom, both possible. Everybody can end in the middle. So, no recipe how to behave, once again. But this book is quite interesting about understanding how your interaction with somebody else works. Are they a taker? Maybe you can make them happy with giving. Do you have a constellation where one is giving and a few are always taking? Not that good. Are you in a case where it's actually a faker? You should be aware. So yeah. No answers, but helpful. And we're coming to the end now, because I brought you examples, and I didn't give you any answers. I know, I'm sorry. But yeah, before coming to the end, I want to take 1 second for a personal note and a personal thank you, and then we finalize this. And that is, there's one dimension that I always kept out of this talk. I did this talk for like 5 or 6 times by now, and there's one dimension that I on purpose always ignored, and that is thinking about feminism, or why is my boss a man and how do I behave with that. I always ignored it, and mostly the reason why is because I thought, okay, if I go on stage being a woman and now talking about feminism, this probably leads to you not listening to everything else I tell. So, okay, I ignored it. Now I dare to touch it because I don't have to talk about it. I'm super happy that this is the first conference ever where 2 men did the job about talking about the feminist part. So thanks to Kenny, thanks to Andrew who's here. Thanks a lot that you did that part of why it happened, how it happened, and I don't have to. You got the political and the scientific view from me now. Hope the sum of it all gives you something. So let's come to my summary. My personal summary of what's going on. What I didn't want to believe that is true is IT is deterministic, but humans are not. We as engineers usually are engineers because we like the world to be deterministic and stuff to be wrong or right. Humans don't behave like that, and Andrew also made that point clear in the morning. Humans behave in a human way. There is sociologist science about why they behave like that and how they behave, and it does not make any sense to judge if this is good or bad. It is like it is. The same is true for politics. It happens. There is no way that politics stop happening as long as we as humans live together. We can say we ignore that stuff on purpose, but it will not stop making it happening. It more leads you to you not being involved anymore or just the ball in the game of others. There's no way that politics doesn't happen, so your only choice is, do you want to involve or not? Or do you at least want to be aware what's going on or not? And the same is also true for power. It doesn't matter if you like power or not. It exists. It happens every day. So once again, you can try to ignore it. Probably works. But it works better not to ignore it, but to be aware of it. So I want to end this whole talk with the last quote of the day. Once again, Jacob Kaplan-Moss. Sociopaths already know the stuff and use it to their advantage and everybody else's detriment. This stuff is exactly what I was talking about. I think it's critical that empathetic, caring, ethical people understand power too, so they can get stuff done in an empathetic, caring, and ethical way. Those are better words than I could ever have found. So we stop with that, and I open for questions. Or additional solutions, also fine.
Hello. I'm sorry, I'm going to speak about something that's really important for me. At some point you said that in Germany, at some point people said nobody should have power and that's anarchy, and we know it doesn't work. And you spoke about Andrew's talk this morning, and he referred to David Graeber, who was something that who was very smart, and he was a a true, honest anarchist, I think. And I don't know, to take some example, if you know about the history of the Spanish Revolution, but I'd say that many things can be said about the Spanish Revolution, but I think I really don't think it showed that anarchism doesn't work, and I think the opposite. I think it showed that if enough people are convinced, then it clearly proved that it can work. So what do you think about that?
Actually, I agree mostly. So we're not that far from each other. Probably I didn't phrase it correctly. It's not like I don't believe anarchy can work. It's more, most people don't think it, and no power is not the same as anarchy. It's just quite similar. So I didn't phrase it precise enough. You actually did a better job than me. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question, or maybe a solution. What about just doing it and asking forgiveness later? Is that something that you've learned over time?
I did that with other projects, actually. So it is a possible solution. I tried to make it clear that I don't believe in this case because it was like half a year project. And it's very hard to do something in hidden for half a year. If it would be a smaller one, just do it and ask for forgiveness can be a bit of a power play that might work. So yeah, just doing it or grabbing colleagues to do it together or whatever, that can actually be a solution. I tried to avoid it with my example of having a big enough project where this wouldn't work. More options. Can't believe you don't have other solutions or questions. This was not complete.
So another possibility would be to bring all the team together on a meeting saying, we have a problem. What do we want to do about it? And so you don't put a deadline, you don't put a yes or no question. And you bring all your colleagues which are living the same pain about the problem to bring many voices on your side. And you can let the manager do the decision, but you let your colleague vent about the problem, and so there's social pressure. And I see that if he says we'll not do anything about it, the human aspect will be afraid of losing power because a lot of the team will be resentful about that their pain is not taken into account by their leader.
Agreed. Like I see two dimensions here. First, yes, talking to your colleague gives you a lot of power. Like, because as a group, you're stronger than one person already. And this would have been a very good solution. Second dimension, yes, I went a path of, hey, I have the solution already. Talking to colleagues, you should be careful if you go the same communication path as you go to your boss. And you did it completely right, and Kenny mentioned it yesterday in a very, very good way. If you want to be inclusive to the team, to have a common agreement, don't come with a solution, but with a question. So the whole team comes to an answer and then is in a stronger position. Agreement. But yeah, this would, in my terms and definitions, this would be politics, to first involve the team and then go to the boss. Okay, I see no more questions. That's cool. We are like 2 or 3 minutes early. So you're the first ones to grab coffee if you still want coffee. Thanks for listening.